Welcome to the podcast that must not be named. I am Luke.
Melissa's over here.
And we are going to do our chapter recap of chapters 11 through 15. Yay! We're going to go through chapters 11, The Dueling Club, 12, The Polyjuice Potion, 13, The Very Secret Diary, 14, Cornelius Fudge, and 15, Aragog. Melissa, what just happened?
Instead of learning how to duel, the school instead learns that Harry is a Parseltongue. This adds to the hysteria surrounding Harry as the heir of Slytherin, which is not improved when Justin and nearly headless Nick are found, once again by Harry, petrified. To distract themselves, Harry, Ron, and Hermione throw themselves into making the Polyjuice Potion. It almost goes perfectly, and the boys discover that Malfoy is not opening the chamber, but Hermione turns into a cat. Harry finds a lost diary and, after a Valentine's Day mishap, discovers the memories of Tom Riddle preserved from 50 years before. Tom gives Harry some information about the chamber, that it was opened by Hagrid. Before they can, or will, ask Hagrid, the diary is stolen from Harry's room, and another two students are attacked, one being Hermione. All activities are canceled and strict protections are put into place for the students' safety. This, of course, means that Harry and Ron sneak out to Hagrid's, where they witness, while hidden under the invisibility cloak, both Hagrid's arrest and Dumbledore's firing, ending with Hagrid shouting about following the spiders to learn some stuff. Harry and Ron do, and discover Hagrid's ancient pet monster spider, Aragog, who is not the monster in the chamber, but who refuses to tell the boys much else. The giant spiders attack them, and the rogue car appears again, saving their lives, and the boys then just head back off to bed.
All right, as always, on our 5-chap recaps, we are rejoined by Riley, our first-time reader. Welcome back, bud.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How you been these past couple weeks?
I've been good. Reading away, doing schoolwork, the usual.
Yeah, still sticking with it, huh? Sticking with us?
Definitely.
All right. Well, instead of, me asking you questions from the get-go, how about, do you have any main thoughts, overall on this section that we can kind of go maybe chapter by chapter just a little bit?
Yeah, so I guess... there's a lot that goes on. We see a lot of day-to-day stuff, more like exposition, seeing the school and things that go on. But I think the main chunk of what really happens is them executing their plan to investigate Malfoy, which ends up kind of going how I expected it, to leading to nothing, because I think he's just kind of arrogant and really doesn't know what's going on, but wants people to think he does.
Right.
So I kind of figured that.
Kind of puff himself up just to look good.
Right.
Or look important, maybe.
And going off of that, I think the biggest thing that's interesting, in this section, it seemed like a lot of things that I wouldn't expect from the characters to do, things that I wouldn't expect them to do, they did. Hermione, she started finally being okay with kind of breaking the rules a little bit. They kind of got her out of being so stuck up. But then she just turned into this mob boss. She's running this plan for the Polyjuice Potion and sending Harry and Ron to do her little bidding, or it was very interesting. She took command, which I thought was very similar to her character, but it just seemed like she was not doing everything by the rules of the school a lot, which was kind of out of character. At least I thought.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. So in chapter 11, which is the Dueling Club, we have quite a few things that happen there.
Oh, yeah.
What did you think of that chapter?
First off, Lucius Malfoy is for sure the bad guy.
You think so?
Maybe. At least in that beginning of the chapter, it definitely seems like it. There's a lot that goes on. We find out...
How so, Lucius Malfoy?
Well, I just think... He seems like he knows a lot more of what's going on than anybody else about the chamber. And we even hear later on that there's things that he knows that he won't even tell Malfoy about. Draco Malfoy. So it just seems like he's a character who's close enough to the story, but kind of looming in the distance a little bit.
So you think we finally have maybe a reasonable suspect?
Hopefully. I think so. I could be proven wrong, though. I don't think it's Draco Malfoy doing it, but I think Lucius is definitely in cahoots with, or with the person or is the person who's like causing things.
Somehow involved.
Yeah, for sure.
Intimately involved.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And another thing in chapter 11, a dueling club is a great idea. Like, people are getting attacked.
Mm-hmm.
So let's learn how to actually fight, because Lockhart's obviously not teaching anybody to do that in his class.
Right. I was going to say, do you think that's something that should happen normally? But then, yeah, it probably is normally part of the Defense Against the Dark Arts class, which seems to be lackluster. Yeah,
and then we find out Harry is a parcel mouth, which obviously should be a Slytherin. Just saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's funny.
I mean, he's clearly struggling with that.
Yeah.
That whole thing too.
And that comes up later when he talks to the Sorting Hat again.
Mm-hmm.
And it says you would have done great in Slytherin. But I don't know. We'll find. I feel like I'll find out more about that.
Right. But. So after the dueling club, he goes off, and I think it's all in this chapter as well, that he's basically trying to find, Justin the next day, and herbology is canceled and all that.
He gets so unlucky. He's literally in the wrong place at the wrong time all the time, which I had a note, which I don't really think anymore, but when I was reading that end of the chapter, I was like, Harry is the killer. He just doesn't know it yet, because we don't know anything about his background, really. I mean, he doesn't even know anything about his background, so. Yeah. Maybe just doesn't realize it, kind of a Tyler Durden type thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So right before he comes across Justin and Nearly Headless Nick, who've been petrified, which we'll get back to that as well. But he has that whole interaction with the Hufflepuffs in the library, where they're talking about him before he gets there, and then he kind of overhears them. So he's like, well, let's see what they're saying. And they clearly are in the boat of, it's him. You know, it's got to be. He's a parcel mouth. What do you think of their reaction and how Harry handled talking to them?
Well, I'll take it in two parts. I think their reaction, like I said, at that point makes sense, because I kind of thought the same thing too. All the signs are pointing to him. He's been right next to every. I mean, obviously we've been seeing it from his point of view. So
from what they've seen, their information perfectly reasonable for it to be assumed to be him.
It's obviously, I never advocate talking behind somebody's back, but when people are getting attacked in your school, it's kind of hard not to put blame on somebody who's in your school. And then from Harry's perspective on how he handled it, I feel like everybody has walked up to a conversation about them at some point and tried to defend themselves. I don't know. I've definitely done that. So I think he did his best. You're not going to go in and say, it was me, because it's not me, but I think he did all that he can. He's just trying to fix things in the best way that he can. So it's tough.
It's just funny that he's talking to Ernie McMillan, and he's like, so you saw what happened last night, and I told the snake to stop, and it stopped. And Ernie's like, well, I saw you, say something in parcel mouth, and then the snake turned. But it's so clearly not what happened at all.
Yeah, I know.
But it's so funny because Harry's like, so you saw what happened? The thing that happened, you were watching? Yeah. Did you see what actually happened? Because it doesn't sound like we were in the same place.
Right. Just different perspectives.
So then he does leave there, frustrated. And he comes across Nearly Headless Nick and Justin. What is going on? What was your thought when you first heard that Nearly Headless Nick was frozen, petrified, like a ghost?
Nobody's safe now, I guess. I don't know. I didn't really think about the safety. You're a ghost. You can't anything.
How can you hurt a ghost?
Obviously,
outside of being a Ghostbuster.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe there's a Ghostbuster running around.
But yeah, it's nobody's safe, and there's still no answers being found really at that point. I don't know. There's got to be some sort of investigative team. I think, I hate to say that the attacks at Dumbledore that come later in this section are warranted, but you gotta bring
much as being done to find out who's doing this.
I know we haven't seen a lot of the outside world really yet, but it leads me to believe that there's a lot going on outside of just this school. So there's got to be some unit that you can bring in.
Investigative squad, something.
Where's Witch Team 6?
Right.
But I don't know.
Yeah, spell VU, Law and Order. So after that, Harry gets caught and then gets taken to Albus's, Dumbledore's office. Do you have any thoughts on their conversation, him talking to the Sorting Hat, and then we see the Phoenix
Fox.
as well.
Yeah.
That whole scene. What'd you think of that?
I think it was kind of a really cool scene. It definitely, she painted a picture in my head.
So this is chapter 12 now.
Yeah,
as well.
in chapter 12, the start of it. She definitely painted a picture in my head of the office, which I mean to me was like a grand office. The Phoenix dying like right at the start is so hairy.
Yeah.
Like with everything else that's happened to this kid in
so
the past
hairy.
like 6 chapters. Like, of course, he goes to the headmaster's office, and, like, he doesn't know what a phoenix is. So, like, it dies, and he's just like, well, here we go. This is how we're going to start this. Like, great. So,
How am I going to talk myself? How am I going to convince more death around me?
I know. It's just, I feel bad for the kid at this point. But, I don't know. I just don't understand why he doesn't tell Dumbledore about the voice in his head. Because if you don't know anything about the wizarding world and all of this stuff is happening around you, you could be the problem. You just have to like go and figure out what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like you may not be directly causing them, but he could be cursed or something. Like he could have a death field around him or something. I don't know, but
Sure. Yeah, no.
so like I would go and tell Dumbledore everything that's happening around me and everything that I'm hearing because he's the strongest wizard I know.
Yeah, and apparently by all accounts he's pretty well regarded as being the best wizard there is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty good resource to go ask these questions to
Exactly. So
in a safe environment.
right. I just don't. I mean, I get he's young, he's scared, and wants to, I guess, be heroic and figure out things on his own. But
Mm-hmm.
I would just say, man, this stuff's. I'm hearing things in my head, and then people die.
Yeah, not a good sign usually.
No, yeah.
So then we have some kind of day-to-day stuff, but then we get to the Polyjuice potions ready,
Right.
and we find out that Malfoy's staying over Christmas holidays.
And so is Hermione.
And so
Why
is
is
Hermione.
she staying? You know, I mean, like I said, going back to very uncharacteristic activities, she has a family, and I mean, the Weasleys usually stay, right? But I just don't understand why she's staying, and why is Malfoy staying? He has a family. There's no reason for those two to go, like,
Mm-hmm.
and stay. I don't know.
And it seems like if you are a Muggle-born and potentially a target in this castle, wouldn't you want to like
Not be in there?
reduce your chances and just get out for a little while? A little questionable.
Yeah.
But then they use the Polyjuice potion.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of that whole scene there with taking the Polyjuice potion and it kind of being painful and
Right. I thought it was a cool use of magic. I just, for some reason, when I was reading, I didn't really expect anything to go wrong. Like, just, I think because of the disposition that kind of like Ron had, like, oh, this plan, there's obviously nothing that could go wrong. So, like, him foreshadowing that, I
like,
just
clearly
kinda,
stating that.
I figured it was like him either like joking or something might happen, but I didn't think Hermione would turn into a cat.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that Ron and Harry don't know how to act like not Ron and Harry.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was funny.
Yeah. So they take the Polyjuice potion and then they try to find the common room.
Right.
To me, that's
Big flaw.
a little bit, yeah, like you wasted half of it says specifically 1 hour. You have 1 hour. It seems like a little, like for how much planning they did.
A little bit of an oversight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we did run into Percy
Mhm.
Weasley, who seems to have maybe been snooping around, doing something in the
Right.
dungeons, which
Being
I don't know. Did you think anything about, what he might be up to, or?
I just think he seems like he likes to stick his nose into things and I think because he's a Gryffindor prefect, he feels the responsibility of being heroic and like is probably trying to do the same thing that Harry and Ron and Hermione are doing, like trying to figure it out himself.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when there's nobody else in the castle, he doesn't have to watch over everybody, so he can kind
Sure.
of go and
And we know he's pretty ambitious, so
Right.
he could be, fame seeking or,
Mhm.
recognition seeking too by being that guy.
yeah, totally. I could see that.
So we do get some information from Malfoy once we do get into the well, also your first time seeing the Slytherin common room.
Right.
How'd you feel about your home there?
I'm a little upset that it's painted in like it's just so dark and dingy, but you know what? It doesn't really matter where you live when you're the best wizards in the school. So I mean, I get it. Like, you guys can have your nice little castle up in the. You Gryffindors can have the nice little tower, common room, and everything. We'll take the dirty, dark dungeons. I don't care. I think it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's also the first other common room that we've seen. We haven't seen or heard anything about Hufflepuff or Ravenclaw. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we'll get to view my Ravenclaw common room at some point.
Yeah.
So Malfoy clearly says that he's not the guy.
And why would he not tell his two best friends?
Right. So do you think, along with that, do you think Malfoy was fooled by their impersonations of Crabbe and Goyle? Like, do you think he bought it?
I think so. I think they were lucky because Crabbe and Goyle are so stupid that them not knowing how to be them. Almost no matter what they did, they were probably going to get away with it. And the fact that...
Unless they were too smart.
Right.
I mean, really.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that Malfoy is so in his own head, like doesn't really care about the people around him, that he probably wouldn't have noticed. So
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they've never talked on screen to us, so not surprising. So then we move on to chapter 13. Unless you have anything else on chapter 12.
Nope.
Which this is the very secret diary. This is where we finally find the diary after someone had thrown it through Myrtle. And Harry pretty clearly seems attached to it.
Yeah.
You know, it has some kind of draw for him. What were your thoughts on him interacting before he even writes in it? He clearly seems to be.
Yeah, he definitely like kept it with him. I don't know. I think at that point all of his leads were kind of exhausted, and so once this popped up, he was kind of hoping for anything at first, which is why I think he grabbed it and held on to it even when Ron was pretty much telling him like it's pointless right off the bat. But after that initial like grab and clutch, essentially, it definitely seemed like he was still even more so attached to it than I think a normal person would have been. So I don't really have any ideas. But
no insight as to what it might what might be going on there.
I don't know. Maybe Harry is the heir of Slytherin. Maybe he's the killer.
Maybe. So what else happens this chapter? What other notes do you have this?
Yeah, I really
chapter?
liked this chapter. I thought it was really funny. It was weird because this was the chapter that we kind of started getting that time skip going on, right?
Like jumping months.
Yeah, jumping months. And I have people don't get attacked for 4 months. It's all clear, guys. Don't worry. We don't need to investigate anymore. We're all fine.
Good. No worries.
Yeah, that's definitely not. I don't get that logic. I would still be searching and like
right. Yeah, because the Polyjuice potion was Christmas Day, right? And then I think this one is like middle of April.
Yeah, it gets to Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
the Valentine's Day. That all happens this chapter too. Okay.
So I have one. There's dwarves, which is awesome. I'm a big fan of dwarves. Didn't know that they were here in this world. And 2, Lockhart apparently has the power to just summon them and be Cupid messengers for the day, even when they're like disgruntled. So
yeah, I guess you think there's some kind of hiring service that he went to?
He has to be. He's got to be rich. I mean, dude sells so many books. But yeah, I just thought that was funny. He's like, here's my servant dwarves that are just gonna do this. I don't know. I thought it was a funny chapter. The diary is obviously the biggest part, and then we get to Harry actually figuring out that the diary can talk back to him, which is really interesting. I don't know. I definitely wasn't expecting that.
Talking to Tom,
yeah,
and then being pulled into a memory.
Yeah, the only thing that I don't know really anything about Tom, but the only thing that I can like think of is like he reminds me of Harry because like 2 chapters ago last chapter Harry walked into the headmaster's office and had a talk with him and lied to him. Right. And it specifically said that the way that Tom said no was the same way that Harry had said no.
To Dumbledore, yep.
I guess that's part of why maybe I think like there's a connection. But yeah, it just seemed like they're similar.
Do you like Tom?
I don't know. I don't think I've read enough about it. I mean, we've seen that one scene where at first it seemed like he was very like Percy-esque. Like he explained.
That's the other similarity that I see with it too.
I mean, it's fine. Like I don't have a problem with a prefect kid making a difference. But then it was Hagrid that he not attacked, but caught. And which at first I was like, oh my gosh, that never occurred to me. Like, that's a crazy accusation. But I'm all in for that. That could be it. And then like in the next chapter, we find out it definitely is not. So
right.
At first, I didn't really have any opinions about. I mean, I just thought he was similar to Harry, which was weird. And then obviously there's something more going on. So I'm excited to read on.
Yeah. So then move to chapter 14, or do you have anything else on 13?
It was just funny. I don't know. I thought I liked the pacing of it. I liked the humor.
The Cupidors were pretty funny.
Yeah.
And the song that gets sung to Harry.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's some stuff in the hospital wing that, like, some of Ron and Harry's banter is pretty funny too.
Where they're talking like, how is she still doing homework?
Yeah,
kind
exactly.
Of stuff.
Yeah, I just thought it was like the funniest chapter of the books so far.
Yeah, a lot of good one-liners and comedy for sure. So then, chapter 14, Cornelius Fudge. What do you think of this chapter? I think this one jumps around a lot.
Yeah,
there's like 4 or 5 distinct scenes.
The first thing that jumped out at me was, well, we find out that Hagrid had something to do with this a long time ago. But let's just wait until somebody else gets hurt to go investigate it.
To go talk to him.
Yeah, like, what? It's just another, like, bad investigation tactics. I mean, conveniently, somebody else gets hurt after the Quidditch match.
Well, before it, right? They didn't even...
Well, yeah, like, right before it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I just thought that was an interesting choice.
So, before that Quidditch match, Harry, Ron, and Hermione are talking, and Harry tells her something, and she clearly gleans some information from what he says and goes running off to the library saying, oh, I need to check something. I'll be in the library or whatever. And that's right when Harry goes down to the Quidditch pitch. Do you think she's figured something out, or do you think she's...
I forget exactly what he said.
Let me find it, so it says, as he left the Great Hall with Ron and Hermione to go and collect his Quidditch things, another very serious worry was added to Harry's growing list. He had just set foot on the marble staircase when he heard it yet again. Kill this time. Let me rip. Tear. He shouted aloud, and Ron and Hermione both jumped away from him in alarm. The voice, said Harry, looking over his shoulder. I just heard it again, didn't you? Ron shook his head, wide-eyed. Hermione, however, clapped a hand to her forehead. Harry, I think I've just understood something, and I've got to go to the library. And she sprinted away up the stairs.
Obviously, she's got something figured out. I don't know. It has to deal with Harry being able to hear the voice. And so far, the only thing that we've learned, I mean, other than like him being the boy wonder, he's different is he's a parcel mouth. So potentially that could be something that she's thought of.
But wouldn't you see us like, where's this, like, if it, like, where,
yeah,
like, where's the snake? if there's a snake around, I don't know.
The sneaky snake,
very sneaky snake.
Yeah, I don't know. She's obviously got something figured out.
Yeah,
but
so I don't know. It's because then after that,
she's
one of the ones that's attacked. Right. Her and a Ravenclaw prefect,
the same one that they met.
Yep, definitely.
Wow. So I guess the attacks could be getting closer tied to the investigation. Maybe.
I mean, yeah, it very well could be. I think most people in the student body wouldn't expect Harry to attack Hermione.
Yeah.
And he was clearly at the Quidditch pitch.
Right.
So I think with
kind
that,
of exonerates him
his name gets a little cleared by the student population.
And we even see that from the Hufflepuffs and
Ernie.
Yeah.
Ernie Macmillan. Yep, definitely. So yeah, they canceled the rest of the Quidditch season, basically.
Right.
Right before this, the diary goes missing from Harry's dorm room too. And then there's an attack.
It's gotta be linked. I mean, for sure.
How so, do you think?
Well, I mean, he's literally saying that Tom is saying that he's the one that caught the guy last time, 50 years ago. So obviously the diary is linked. Whether somebody's stealing that to find out more or maybe to close something. I mean, so definitely the person who stole it has to be a Gryffindor. Or
do they?
Somebody with with extreme access to.
We just saw last chapter Harry and Ron access the
That's
Slytherin
true.
common room.
Has to be somebody at least powerful enough or smart enough to get into another common room or a Gryffindor, and they could be either helping or hurting. That's pretty much all we know.
Mm-hmm. So with that, Hermione is attacked.
Yeah.
And now we don't have our
Uh-huh.
our girl genius,
Right.
who clearly seemed to have figured something out. And usually her hunches, as far as we've seen so far, have been pretty accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty big crutch on solving this investigation.
Yeah.
So after that, do you have any other thoughts on chapter 14? We go to Hagrid's. This is when they finally go and talk to Hagrid.
I have one more note earlier in the day before all of this happens. At the beginning of 14, there's a big ruckus going around because they have to pick classes for next year.
Their new classes.
That's something that I never thought about. I just think that's interesting that they're not all on the same curriculum, which I just kind of had assumed previously.
Mm-hmm. They actually can start doing some kind of elective type courses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
I thought that was awesome. But yeah, then they go to Hagrid's shack.
Mm-hmm. And why don't you tell us what happened there, or what you got from it?
Yeah, so we see Hagrid obviously prepared for something. He's got the crossbow out, and then a big ruckus comes up because Dumbledore just appears. Well, he knocks on the door and shows up, and then Cornelius Fudge appears and shows.
They showed up together.
Oh yeah, they did. So Fudge is there to take away Hagrid, but
where's he gonna take him?
They're saying Azkaban, but I have a hard time believing that he's at least being treated like a prisoner there because of the way that Fudge and Dumbledore are speaking about it. Mm-hmm. Because Dumbledore says that he has my vote of confidence. There's I trust him entirely, and Fudge is like, well, it's only temporary until it's more of a public ploy to get people to calm down.
It's a PR move.
Yeah, definitely. And then
gotta be seen doing something.
And then we have Shady Malfoy, Lucius Malfoy, show up to suspend Dumbledore with apparently all of the power of the governors, which is interesting. But I can't, like I said earlier, I can't blame them for that because I feel like
you see where they're coming from.
There has to have been something more happening. Mm-hmm. I wish it was coming from somebody else,
right?
Obviously, but while I do trust Dumbledore, I think he's a powerful wizard and probably knows what's going on. I think there should have been more that has been happened.
Sure, maybe definitely more that at least is visible to show that, hey, we're making efforts. We're not just saying, hey, students, walk with your teachers between classes. That's a precaution. That's not investigation. That's not trying to solve what the problem is. Right. That's I see how you agree that it seems like they're feeling justified and you're not doing the job. We have to change. We have to make some kind of change here.
Right.
I get that.
And obviously, we get the line from Hagrid where he says, how many people did you have to threaten or bribe to get all those votes? Which, I can see that perspective, but obviously more than just one person thought that there was a problem with him running it. So
yeah, no, it's fair. So before they get taken away, Hagrid and Dumbledore, they both kind of give
a line or a little piece of advice.
Yeah,
which is interesting because we didn't know Dumbledore knew we were there, but
yeah, he
apparently
clearly kind of gives them a little look-see, and again, it seems like Dumbledore can maybe see through the invisibility cloak or has some other kind of cognizance that even if he can't see them, he knows that Harry or someone is there.
Right. Well, he says, he just says students. I thought he said Gryffindors.
Yeah, no, he said anyone who is loyal, ask for help, we'll get it.
Which is an interesting line. That doesn't really,
It doesn't seem all that practical right now, right?
Go ahead and ask for help, but everybody who knows something is leaving.
Right. And who do I ask for help?
And then Hagrid tells them to follow the spiders, which leads us into 15.
Yeah. Do you want to keep rolling right along?
Sure.
Aragog?
Yeah. There's not really much that happens other than them going out into the forest, right? Is there anything that happens earlier?
We we get some day-to-day stuff where one thing that I remember thinking on this chapter is there's a line where it says the hospital wing has been barred since the killer might come back to finish the people off.
Right.
What did you have any thoughts on that line specifically?
I mean, it's like makes sense, but like it's I don't know. It seems like the killer hasn't killed anybody yet, has it?
No, we've had Mrs. Norris.
And it's definitely had apt opportunity to, because every time it's done it, I mean, maybe it's really just trying not to be seen, and it just gets its job done as quickly as it can, and every time it's about to kill somebody, it has to run away.
Yeah, so our real quick recap is Mrs. Norris the cat, Colin Creevy, then Justin Finch Fletchley and Nearly Headless Nick, and then Hermione and the Ravenclaw prefect.
Right.
I think that's all of them.
I mean, I understand wanting to not get those people killed off, but obviously that's not the objective, it seems.
So you think it's not necessarily someone trying to kill people right now, it's maybe creating terror, just more like terrorizing the school,
which I haven't even like thought about until now, but it doesn't seem like it's really trying to kill anybody.
I mean 0 for 6. I mean, it seems like maybe the petrification is the end goal to create this chaos. I really haven't thought about it this way either, really. But that's, I mean, from what we've seen, completely reasonable. We have nothing saying otherwise. I think everyone just assumes there's, because of the myth of, the legend of the Chamber of Secrets,
right? Where
there's supposed to be
somebody died,
and we do have a death previously on what people are assuming is a linked case, but that information doesn't seem to be all that well known.
Oh, definitely not.
So I don't know. I think it's,
and that's what I think the link to the diary is. Because obviously Tom Riddle has to know more than anybody else. But yeah, I don't know. Locking up the hospital wing just seems like, I mean, what if a kid has a cold? Oh, people are dying. Yeah, I mean, I guess.
I think it's more locking visitors out.
Yeah.
If someone actually needs to be there, they probably can get in. It's probably just not letting passersby come and visit necessarily.
Yeah.
So after that, we do have Ernie McMillan apologizing to,
that's when we get,
to Harry and Ron, and Ron's not buying it. What'd you think of both Harry and Ron's reactions?
I mean, I think Harry's just glad to not be on the chopping block,
on the hook.
Yeah, so I think that makes sense for him to just like be like, okay, thank you, like I know I'm right, like thanks for realizing. And it makes sense for Ron to just be like, I mean,
listen, pal,
he's not been, it's been this the whole time, man. Like,
yeah, no change.
Lay off, my friend.
Yeah,
you're kind of an idiot for not realizing up until now. But yeah, I mean, I don't think anything weird about the way they reacted. It makes sense to me.
I'm not too sure if there's any other really major plot points in this before we do
Aragog
sneak
stuff.
out to Hagrid's hut, and we get Fang following the spiders the whole way, which they found in herbology class after the the conversation with Ernie. So go ahead. What I'm gonna let you kind of just go through your thoughts on getting through the forest again. It's the second time Harry's been in there.
Right. I think anytime you head into the forest is a bad idea, but I mean, Hagrid told them to go, so that would make sense. It seems so. Before I give my opinion, I'll just say what happened. So we go into the forest. We see bigger spiders that kind of wrap up Harry and Ron and take them to their leader, Aragog, who we find out is used to be a friend of Hagrid and pretty much exonerates Hagrid from being the bad guy and proves that to Harry and Ron, which is, it seems like Hagrid's end goal when he tells them to follow the spiders is to get his name cleared, which makes sense. But also, he just kind of assumed that they wouldn't either, one, get killed by something else in the forest or by the spiders that he doesn't have any control over when he's not there, which is kind of irresponsible of Hagrid, which we're going back to kind of dumb Hagrid again. But
it's really the first time this book that he's done something that puts them in unreasonable, in my opinion, unreasonable danger.
Mm-hmm. And we also see the car again, which saves them, which is funny, which is cool. It seems like it says the forest is like turned it wild.
Yeah,
which I think that's hilarious. That it's just like now it's just like a part of the forest.
Right. It's its own living entity, is what it seems like, almost like Tarzan car.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it like find another car and like start a little car family.
Do you think there's other cars in the forest?
Hey, there's other cars in the sea.
Fair enough. So what do we learn from Aragog?
Well, we learned that one, people thought that Aragog was the creature in the Chamber of Secrets, but actually it wasn't. He was just he was from somewhere else, but was an egg that Hagrid raised or hatched and raised and took care of and befriended and hidden in a cupboard, which is interesting, very Hagrid, and like that's why he got kicked out of school. So we learned more about that, which is interesting. And I don't know, I just think it's weird that he was going to just let the other spiders kill Harry and Ron, which I get. I mean, they're beasts, but when you're cultivated by humans or so, like by a human, and they say that they're a friend, I guess it's all hearsay, but when they say that Hagrid sent us to talk to you because he's in trouble, like, wouldn't you want to maybe take the chance and not feed your friends to save the guy who saved you? I don't know.
So I'm going to just tell you to keep a mental bookmark on the term beasts. And whenever we do I think it's between books 4 and 5, we're going to read the original Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Okay. And we'll revisit this discussion as well, because you used that term specifically, and there is like a specific definition in this world. So we'll just revisit it at that point, but just bookmark that mentally for yourself. So then, the Ford Anglia saves the day. Gets them out of there. And you can tell Ron's just this is absolute horror for him. This entire thing, he can't even talk. He cannot speak. What do you think about him literally living out his truly worst nightmare for, and it going about as bad as it can possibly go with being saved? But
that's tough. I mean, like, I don't know. He's sticking with Harry, man. Maybe he has that death ward around him. Like, that's crazy. I could not imagine that because I'm also pretty terrified of spiders. But I don't know. I don't blame the guy. Like, because I don't know what I would do. Like, he doesn't even know how to do magic. Like, he even said before they walked into the forest, like, I'd throw my light on, but I'd probably blow something up.
So, because his wand's broken still.
Yeah, like, he has no way to defend himself.
So he really is in the absolute worst nightmare he could possibly dream of.
He brought it upon himself, though. He literally, his tip was follow the spiders. And he did it.
But. So there was one other large piece of information that Aragog gave us. And it was that, yes, a girl was killed last time, and she was found in a bathroom.
Oh, right.
So we
find out that it's probably Moaning Myrtle who was killed.
Yeah, Harry, I'm pretty sure Harry says, we should probably go ask
the dots.
Moaning Myrtle how she died. So that's a pretty big piece of information as well. So
definitely does help the investigation.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that, or dealing with Aragog, or
I just like seeing more I'm going to say beasts, but creatures in the world that are weird and interesting.
And I'm not saying you're wrong on that. It was more just that understanding there is a distinction somewhere out there.
But I like to see more. I mean, I like seeing more of the forest. I just think it's dumb that they go out there because they are not like strong wizards. Like, they've taken out a troll by sticking a wand up their nose. Like I don't know.
They've mostly lucked through a lot of. When we see it, it's a lot of luck.
Blind, dumb luck for sure. But I don't know. I think they've got it under control. I think they'll figure it out. But I think it's a cool interaction. Learning more about Hagrid and more about like the people long ago is always interesting to me.
So overall, this section, how do you think it compares to the first two sections?
I like it a lot more just because it picks up the pace a lot, which I enjoy. I mean, I like getting to the story.
It's a lot more plot points, a lot more action in this section.
It seems like it's kind of a weird plot, like, map for the story, because we get a lot of exposition and then leads that we later find out that aren't really the way or aren't really what happens or who's the killer, which happens when you're looking for something. You're gonna get dead ends, but
I was gonna say, is that maybe more realistic investigation type?
Definitely, it could be. I don't know. It just seems like it's a lot quicker, and things are falling into place more, which is fine, which is nice. And it was a lot like more light-hearted, even though bad things are still happening.
Right.
So I don't know. I liked this chunk better than the other twos, I think.
Good. So I think let's go ahead and get into your 5 questions, your 5 burning questions.
All right.
So question 1 from chapter 11. Where do you think Harry learned the tickling charm that he used in the dueling club?
Oh, man. Probably from, like, Fred and George.
That's actually what I said, too.
Yeah. I mean, what teacher is going to teach you that? Maybe Flitwick, but...
Yeah, I mean, completely reasonable, too. I mean, because we don't see many of their classes. This could be...
Right.
Because, Draco also did the shaky leg one on Harry, the Tarantallegra. I mean, maybe there is, like, just silly... charm hexes that they learn in class just to learn.
Well, I mean, you got to assume that you live in the common rooms with older, people from your house. So
there's going to be more interaction than what we're seeing.
Like, oh, I found this weird spell, this tickling spell. That's definitely something that like Fred and George or an older kid would use and like would be showing off in the common room, and something Harry could probably just try out on Ron or somebody up in their room without like getting in trouble from the older kids.
Right.
So I think it's probably just like there's probably a couple spells that just get passed down,
almost like they're popular ones that just kind of make the rounds.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of ebb and flow. Like, oh, that one was really popular.
It's like the high school games that you play. Like I don't know, like the circle game,
right,
or something. But yeah, I think it's just things that get passed down from older kids to younger kids.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. That's kind of the way I was thinking about it too. Chapter 12, question number 2. Try to pick one that we didn't really already talk about. What mammal would be the worst to be accidentally polyjuiced into?
Well, there's a lot of choices.
Right. For you, what would be the worst?
Probably like a whale, something that can't like just walk.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it is a mammal, but like
yeah, you're absolutely
like anything without legs or hands.
That's fair. That'd be pretty rough.
Like you're just sitting in the bathroom stall and you're like, guys, this isn't going. I don't think. Get the Dory whale talk.
That's a good answer right there. Question 3 from chapter 13. Why do you think Harry feels he has some familiarity with Riddle?
Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and say, because we found out that Riddle was a Slytherin, right? Yeah, because he's a Slytherin prefect.
Doesn't say that,
or at least
we know he's a prefect. I don't know if it says.
I don't know.
Or not.
Maybe not.
I don't think it does.
It might not. But I think it has something to do with like Harry being a Parselmouth, being tied to that house. I don't know. There's definitely like I said, there's a connection there, but I don't know what it is yet.
Okay. Question 4 from chapter 14. What new classes would you sign up for? Say you get to pick 2 of the, I think there are 5 electives, and I can run through those.
Yeah.
So there's Arithmancy, Ancient Runes, Muggle Studies, Care of Magical Creatures, and Divination. Those are the 5 electives that they can choose
What
from.
is the first and last one?
Arithmancy, we are assuming, I mean, it sounds like math. It sounds like arithmetic. Some kind of numbers, using numbers and magic. And the last one, Divination, is prophecy, fortune-telling type things.
First choice would definitely be Ancient Runes.
Okay.
I think that'd be cool to like. I mean, there's always some power in every story unlocked in an ancient rune.
I think that's a pretty good choice.
Yeah, and then either probably divination or probably caring for magical animals.
Care of magical creatures.
Yeah,
and you
just because I mean that's what I've liked the most so far is like seeing the different things in the world. Like I said, the seeing the spiders was cool. Seeing that there were dwarves and things that we don't normally see in the world is cool. So I don't know, learning how to care for things that are interesting and spectacular would be cool.
Nice. All right, here's your last question from chapter 15. How is the car surviving in the forest?
I think the forest has some magical aura or presence that allows magic things to flourish in them, like in the forest. Because I think,
You think it's just the forest?
I mean, I haven't seen anything that would say other, like what else it would be. I mean, there could be something underneath, or I don't know.
Well, I'm thinking, so there's also the lake, which we haven't seen a whole lot from, since, especially from book 1. There's that giant squid that's out there. So I'm saying, could it be maybe more of a... is there specifically something
there
with the
could be
forest, or
something
more like the
centered.
Hogwarts grounds in general?
Well, I mean, we do see like the Whomping Willow is like, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, we see that, like, that's obviously something on the grounds that, so it could be just the grounds in general is something that allows magical things to flourish, which could be coming from the school or something else around. I just think that because the car is enchanted and has magical, magical attunement, I guess, that there's something that like allows that presence to flourish and run the rest of the car. Because I think we see little spiders that they follow, and then obviously the spiders get larger, and we see there's centaurs and unicorns. There's got to be something that allows those creatures to flourish in that land. And I think that it's probably something that like hones on their magical abilities. Or
So I'm gonna ask kind of a tag along question with that, specifically for the car. So we know that Mr. Weasley, charmed it or did whatever to magicize it somehow. Do you think so? Now we've seen that it has it's been personified a bit,
sentience a little bit,
right? Do you think that had something to do with what Mr. Weasley did?
It could have. The only thing that would make me think not is that other wizards, specifically like Malfoy, that talk about Mr. Weasley, is that he's not generally like the strongest wizard. So, I mean, he's an adult wizard that has a good job, it seems like, and it definitely has enchanted things before, so it could be something that he knows really well and did. But I don't know.
How do you think it's gained its sentience?
I think the forest has played it up.
Okay.
Because we
don't know much about it.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
I don't think it really did anything other than being driven by the kids. I don't think it like showed any sign of sentience before it being lost to the forest.
Yeah, I mean, as far as we know, nothing. It was just able to fly and turn invisible. That's really all we knew. But yeah, no, that's good. So now it's your turn.
All right.
Let's see. What was your favorite line in these 5 chapters?
My favorite line, I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, is from chapter 13, which I thought was the funniest chapter, and it's right at the beginning where they are in the hospital wing, and Hermione has the note from Lockhart to get better, and Ron says, "Is Lockhart the smarmiest bloke you've ever met, or what?" And I just want to know, I want the definition for the word smarmy, because I just think that's a funny word, and that's like, I don't know, it's such a good, it's definitely if it's not a word, that's a word that I would make up to describe Lockhart.
It's definitely a word.
It's probably an English word, British word.
2013.
Yeah, it's on page 228. But yeah, is Lockhart the smarmiest bloke you've ever met, or what?
Ingratiating, let's see. Smarmy, adjective, ingratiating and wheedling in a way that is perceived as insincere or excessive.
Yeah, okay. For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So, after that, who is your section MVP?
So, my section MVP is not any of our main characters. It's actually Madame Pomfrey.
Oh, okay.
Because so many people have gotten attacked, and she's just constantly like healing people and taking care of them. And I mean, we don't really see a lot of her character, but like, I mean, she closes the hospital wing to look out for the people. She starts getting teachers to like specifically alter their classes. As we see herbology, they start doing the mandrakes to get people unpetrified.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it seems like when there's stuff that's kind of going wrong, she knows how to fix it, and she knows how to get people to give her the stuff that she needs to fix it. So I don't know. I think there was a lot of
behind the scenes work that she's done.
I think there's a lot of characters who did some good things and some bad things, and a lot of characters who did a lot of good things and a lot of bad things that kind of evened out. But she's really the only one who's only taking care of people and
Sure.
like not ever running, not disappearing, not being there, like
Not getting petrified.
Exactly. So I don't know.
I think that's a great pick.
Mhm.
Very, very off the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, very well thought. I mean, I like it. That's a good choice. Guess what? You only have 3 more chapters
3
for
more.
book 2.
Okay.
16, 17, 18. Let's finish it out. We'll
Yeah.
see you in a month.
All right, I'm ready for it.
All right. Thanks, bud. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
All right, and now it is time for our target audience reader perspective. Everybody, welcome back, Lorelai. Hi, Lorelai.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
Good.
Good. How are you liking the next set of chapters here for Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets?
More funny than the last 5 chapters.
What do you mean more funny?
Like the Valentine's Day thing, that was great.
Why did you like the Valentine's Day thing?
Because I like the poem.
The poem?
Mhm.
What was your favorite part of the poem? Was it the eyes as green as a wet pickled toad or something like that?
Yeah, that was my favorite.
Would you do that at your school?
No,
Why not?
there's no cute boys at my school.
There's no cute boys at your school. Spoken like a true 12-year-old, right?
Mhm.
All right. So, what do you think about that Chamber of Secrets and all the people being attacked? What are your
Not
thoughts?
nice.
What?
Not nice.
Not nice. Do you have any kind of idea of who might be opening it? Just
Someone from Slytherin. I don't think Malfoy, but someone from Slytherin.
well, we learned it can't be Malfoy because
Yeah.
of the Polyjuice potion, but you think it's another Slytherin?
Mhm.
Maybe somebody we haven't heard from yet.
Yeah, because only Slytherins are okay.
Okay. Do you think it could be Harry?
No,
Why not?
because we are in Harry's point of view, and yeah.
And yeah, okay, that's not the end of a sentence, but that'll work.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions. So we talked about Polyjuice potion in this section, and they turned it into different colors based on the different people.
Mm-hmm.
What color would Lorelai Polyjuice potion be? So just give a guess. To help you, mine would be a dark purple, sparkly, but with thick black streaks running through it.
Mine would be yellow with some black.
That kind of goes with your Hufflepuff house, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It works really well for you. All right. Another question I have for you. So something else that happened in these chapters is all of our second years had to start signing up for extra classes for next year.
Mm-hmm.
So things like arithmancy, ancient runes, muggle studies, divination, care of magical creatures. What classes would you sign up for?
Care of magical creatures and ancient wizarding.
The ancient runes?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I like history, and that kind of be cool, and I like creatures. Like, they're always really cool in the books, and I just want to learn more about them.
Okay. All right. And my last question for you is our last chapter was all about Aragog and how the boys almost got, eaten alive by giant spiders.
Mm-hmm.
But the car saves them.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think the car is surviving in the forest?
Pretty well, because in the movie, the car looks like he's, like this fancy guy, but then he goes into the jungle and he's like this ape man,
It's
but in car form.
kind of like equating it to almost like a Tarzan character,
Yeah.
goes off into the jungle and becomes wild.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good perspective. All right. Anything else you would like to add as we get towards the end of this book?
That only 2 Gryffindors have been hurt. One Gryffindor ghost, 1 Hufflepuff, and 1 Ravenclaw, but no Slytherins.
So that goes with your theory that it has to be a
What's up
Slytherin.
with that?
That's not very nice, is it?
What's up with that?
So are you saying you want a Slytherin to be attacked?
Kind of, so it could be even.
Okay. All right. Is there... Go ahead.
Because there might be like mudblood Slytherins, but guess what? They're not getting hurt because they're Slytherin. It's the heir of Slytherin, so.
Okay. All right, so let's do. What was your favorite part of these 5 chapters? Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite character?
Ginny.
Okay. Who is your least favorite character?
No.
Malfoy. Why Malfoy?
Because he was just like talking about how Dumbledore and him and his father agree that Dumbledore is like the worst thing that's ever happened to this school.
So he's got some issues.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, Lorelai, thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm.
And we will see you at the end of book.
Okay.
Bye. And now is the time of our podcast, ladies and gentlemen, where we give a special shout out to you, our listeners, who are staying imaginary with us week by week. We appreciate you. Thank you for listening in as we continue through our books. This week, a special shout out goes out to Evelyn, who posted on our Facebook page that we have rekindled her Harry Potter fire and that she thinks we're hilarious, which is nice. Thank you very much for your support and continue to listen week by week. Be sure to tell your friends to listen in and join us each week as we finish up Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets and continue on our trek through the rest of the wizarding world.
So that wraps us up for our non-spoiler filled portion of our 5-chapter recap. Join us next week as we go through chapter 16,
The Chamber of Secrets.
For those who are going to join us in the unrestricted section, we accept your signed note from your favorite professor. Come on in. So I see you have a ton of notes for this these 5 chapters. I'm going to let you go ahead and kick us off.
That sounds good. It's a lot. I apologize. All right. Let's start off. So my notes tend to go in chronological order with the chapters. Not that I remember which chapter I wrote them on. So we know Snape can read minds, sort of. But did he really know it was Harry who sent the filibuster firework into the cauldron? Or is Harry just experiencing guilt? Throughout the series, how much is actual that occlumency or legilimens? And how much is just like good old teacher power over the students?
Before this read through, I never really thought too much about it being the legitimacy stuff too much. Just because it's kind of the benefit of the doubt of they are experienced teachers.
Right.
And Snape has this grudge against Harry.
Right.
Dumbledore is just omniscient as it is. Regardless. But I am thinking there may be some kinds of, like, not full on legitimacy, but like they're more attuned, like even just as a byproduct of knowing how to do that you can just like pick up these, you can infer things.
Like infrared feelings of guilt.
Right. And so like, yeah, kind of like he's getting these, gamma rays or whatever from Harry. And he's just like, well, I know someone in here did it. And boom, I'm looking right at you. Like, I don't know.
Well, and I mean,
I'm not even saying like he's not even trying to do it. Like he just naturally has that now.
And I think a byproduct of just being a teacher is you develop that sixth sense.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you if I am not looking at my class and my back is turned, I can tell you exactly if I hear like a chair move.
Which chair it was. Yeah.
Or if I hear a bottle crunkle for the 79th time, I know who's doing it. I can tell who's paying attention without looking. I just know because I know these kids and I've been with them, and like I know who's going to be focused on the work and who's going to be messing with something else. And so I think that's part of it too, but it gets to be enhanced with sort of this like super secret spy skill of being able to maybe not like full on attack one person's brain,
right,
but just sort of have like, for lack of a better word, like reading the aura of a feeling,
right. And that's kind of what I was trying to get at. Like I think he just is somehow attuned to, so it's the same thing as like eyesight, you don't visually like shoot out beams of seeing,
right?
You are the receiver of the information. So I feel like other things are emitting these auras or whatever,
right,
of whatever feelings or whatever, because of Snape's professorship and all of that, and just natural experience, along with his legitimacy tendencies, that he just naturally picks it up. And same thing with Dumbledore,
right?
So like along with that,
it's like a both.
Whenever they're Harry and Ron are under the cloak in Hagrid's hut, I feel like maybe Dumbledore has that same thing. He's like, I can tell somebody else is here.
Well, and he gave them the cloak.
Right, but he has no reason to suspect that they would be there that night specifically.
No, but I hear something in the corner.
Yeah, I forgot they did make a little noise.
And no matter how quiet you think you are, you might be breathing louder than you expected.
Mm-hmm.
You might shuffle your feet. And being, having that kind of thing, and, and being a reasonably intelligent person, and knowing that, hey, who's the only kid who could be hiding in the middle of nowhere? Oh, wait.
Sure.
Harry's got an invisibility, like, powers of deduction there.
Mm-hmm.
Sherlock Holmes would be proud.
Sure.
That's what it is. All right, so my next thought. Okay, for reals, everyone. Everyone knows that the symbol of Slytherin is a snake, and that Salazar himself was a Parseltongue. They even say, like, oh, the monster of Slytherin is, like, slithering down or whatever. How does no one in centuries figure out that there's a big freaking snake living in the basement? Like, how is that not even, like, occur to people?
I don't get it. Like,
because it's really apparent in the books that, yeah, it's going to be a snake. Hey, look, it's a snake. Hey, look, we talk to snakes. Hey, look, it's about snakes. Hey, look, there's snakes.
Hey, the chickens are all killed. Like,
right. There's no way it's going to end up being like a polar bear down there.
Slytherin's polar bear.
Right? Of course it's a snake. There is no other option.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a snake?
Like,
I'm sorry. Is that
how does
snake
Dumbledore not, like, get, like, or does he know that it's a snake but has no idea how to get to it?
I don't know.
It
bothers me.
It's
a lot.
Silly. Come on, JK.
Right. And then something else that kind of bothers me. So the Ron says that the school is going to think that Harry is the great, etc., great grandson of Slytherin. And Harry's like, no, I'm not. And Hermione, know-it-all Hermione, likes to pipe in with, well, you'll find that really hard to prove. Well, now, actually, Hermione, it wasn't that hard to prove. Took a couple of years, but pretty sure by book 6 we found out no, Harry is not the heir of Slytherin. We proved his family line and the family line of Slytherin, and it's not Harry. So it's kind of nice that...
Well, do we know that the Peverils were no way related to the Slytherins? I mean, I don't think we know that for sure.
I think the Peverils happened before Slytherin, so he's like a different branch. Or that they converged into...
Yeah, I don't know. We don't know.
I feel like it was proven that it went through, like, because it dwindled down in the Merope, yes, were the last heirs. I believe it says that they were like the end of the line.
Could be.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like...
Well, I mean, it still could have branched up above there somewhere.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, but wizarding families tend to keep track of those kinds of things. We've got the Black family.
Sure.
You would think.
Families like that give it, that care.
If you're from Salazar Slytherin, one of the founding ones.
Well, yeah, but you also, like for the blacks, you get your name burned off if you go away.
True.
So
And so
there
then
could be
you're
a
off.
split off, and then that one gets burned off, so you don't know where it goes from there.
Okay.
There's a whole, I don't know. I can't say
branch.
Right.
I don't know. I still think it's not explicitly stated, but implicitly.
Sure,
Harry
and
is
I'll
not.
buy that. That's
Yes.
fine.
Okay. Harry and his worries about being in Slytherin, is that because of his own personal traits, or the Voldy piece inside his head,
Harry's worry about it.
or like just in general, like the fact that he would do well in Slytherin? And
That's
that
just
has,
the Voldemort piece in him.
It's the Voldemort piece that has nothing to do with
Absolutely.
Him.
I think
his
so.
His Harry Potterness. It's the. Voldy
I don't think
piece.
so. I think that's the
That's what
part
I
that's
think.
all Gryffindor.
I think that too.
It's the other stuff that is all Voldemort.
So
I
it's
think.
the hat reading that piece.
Yeah,
Okay.
I always thought so. Like once we found out that Harry's a Horcrux, anything that's related to Tom Riddle that Harry has is only the Horcrux inside him that manifests itself.
So do you think he loses his ability to speak in Parseltongue?
See, I think he should. I think we mentioned that in one of them.
I know. I still like it. It's a mystery for me.
I think he should.
Okay. George totally called the monster out, but for being a snake,
Yeah,
without realizing.
absolutely.
It's chapter 12, page 210. And George said, well, George and Fred. So it starts with Fred.
Oh, get out of the way, Percy, said Fred. Harry's in a hurry. Yeah, he's off to the Chamber of Secrets for a cup of tea with his fanged servant, said George, chortling.
Fang servant.
Yeah, it could
Polar
still be a
bears.
spider. I mean,
Polar bears don't have fangs.
yeah, there are a lot of animals that have fangs, though. Snakes being the prime one, I'd say. I'm more
You're not
just
helping.
devil's advocating.
I know.
for-
Stop that. I'm
I-
right.
I agree.
Let me sit here in my rightness.
No, I agree. That's a very specific descriptor that
right.
way more often is
Right. At no
attributed
point
to
does
snakes.
it say his claws or you know what I
Right.
mean.
His hooves.
Right. Like, how about have the kids give some misinformation and have them think that he's going to scratch your eyes out,
Yeah, his beak. Yeah.
All right. I love that there's a second mystery in the book, that there is a second mystery. And you don't even know there's a second mystery, but there is. And it's, what is Percy doing?
Yeah.
And that during the polyjuice potion, trek, we actually see both the girlfriend and Percy coming out of the same place. But that whole, you go first,
Mhm.
and then I'll wait a few minutes, and then I'll go.
Right.
And they totally don't even get it.
Yeah.
I really like the Percy mystery.
Yeah, it's really funny because it's such like a 12-year-old to 17-year-old
Yes.
lifestyle difference.
Yes.
That is what we're seeing,
Yes.
which is really funny.
Yes.
So it's a very subtle, funny way of he's got a girlfriend.
That's all.
It's not that big of a deal.
No.
It's just funny that Percy wants to hide it so much because he knows that the twins will rip him apart.
Well, and apparently he's been hiding it since the summer.
Yeah, that's why
Because
he
he
was
was
up
hiding
in
in
his
his
room.
room and-
yeah.
And it's kind of nice to see that happens with the older kids, because I really had a problem with book one, that the only perspective we got was from first years
Mhm.
and a little bit of third year with the twins. But we knew nothing about big kids. Now at least we're getting a little bit of glance.
Yeah, other than Oliver Wood, who is just 100% Quidditch, so the
That's all he
age thing
does.
doesn't really
Nope.
matter to
And
him.
even that, he was only a fifth year the year before. So I just, and I know he's the same age as Percy, but I feel like we are just missing that, hey, there's big kids around too perspective. And it was nice to see it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
So Ron was talking about Tom Riddle and how he got his special services award. And Ron jokes and says, maybe he murdered Myrtle. That would have done everyone a favor. Well, it was true. Ron got it right. Riddle did murder Myrtle, and he did get the award because of blaming someone else. So I really like how the mystery clues in this book are much more of those offhand comments.
So blatantly accurate
Yeah,
as jokes.
right. It's
Oh,
the
this is a far-fetched
placement.
idea.
right. It couldn't possibly be this.
Yeah.
Except that's kind of exactly what happened,
Mhm.
which is so much better than book one, where it was like, hey, I have a plot point. Let's have Hagrid bumble and get out some useful information.
Yeah. Yeah,
Product placement is much better here.
Yes.
Then, so Harry was thinking of Tom Riddle as a friend he had when he was small. So I never thought about it as before. I thought about this before, but maybe when he was a toddler or, a really, really little kid, 3, 4, 5 years old living in Privet Drive and not having anybody to talk to, maybe like the piece of Riddle was talking to Harry inside his head. Because if the piece of Riddle can talk to Ginny through the diary, maybe that was Harry's quote unquote imaginary friend.
That is so cool. That is such a cool idea. I had never thought about that. I mean, it's clearly always been there, so that's why I thought he had like the familiarity with, because they have a soul connection.
Right.
And that would be really, really, that's really neat that he could have. I mean, when he's 3, 4, 5, yeah, he's locked in the cupboard probably all the time. Like,
right.
He's already being abused by the Dursleys.
Right.
Who else is he going to talk to?
I want to know
Kids
how
do
he
that in
ended
general,
up, like,
so.
not having that voice in his head all the time.
Yeah.
But, I mean, maybe as a little kid, it was just the voice could have more control. And as he grew older, the voice just got, smaller and smaller with the heart or whatever. But
that's cool.
Because think about it. The Riddle talked to Ginny. The Locket
The
talked to Ron. The diary talked to Ginny. The Locket talked to Ron. When they opened it up, it really could be this piece of Voldemort.
I think,
and maybe
absolutely.
because there wasn't something to open necessarily, it didn't have quite as blatant of an effect. But like he really could have been Harry's imaginary friend, and that could be the familiarity piece.
I wonder. So I wonder how much of Voldemort's intention has to be placed at the time of Horcrux creation. As to how much personality he can give it. Like the diary, he clearly wanted, when he was 17 years old, he clearly wanted it to have these qualities and do pretty much exactly what it did to Ginny.
Yes.
So he designed it to do that. The locket, he designed it that if someone would find it, that it would,
Protect
be
itself.
sitting by their heart and
Yeah.
learn what's in their heart and know how to use that against them.
Right.
He didn't mean to turn Harry into a Horcrux. I'm
so
just
maybe like the strength of power and strength of, I'm trying to think of a better word for it, in intent and evilness, if you will. Like he was still evil, but because it wasn't
he's just naturally evil. He's not intending anything specifically malicious.
to do with Harry because he was
Right.
supposed to have died.
Right.
Okay.
So I don't know, and that's just maybe that is a different side of that same thing. I don't know, but I like the idea that the Horcruxes do have personality of whatever Tom Riddle was
Yeah.
at that point, regardless of his intention.
So I've always been bothered. I think this is one of the reasons why this book is one of my least favorites. Is I'm bothered with the timeline of Lucius choosing to give the diary away. It just doesn't sit well with me. It's not like this just happened naturally. He set this up, and we talked about this. So I've been thinking about it. Maybe Riddle told Lucius the diary opened the chamber, but didn't tell him anything else. Like it just held the key to it. And so he thought, well, I'm going to give this here, and then. But he had to have known it would manipulate Ginny. I don't know. Like, I think it's just me saying I'm bothered by this.
Yeah, and we have talked about it before, and I can't remember exactly what we had said.
Mostly we talked about how did Dobby know ahead of time. This is more focused on how did he know it would affect Ginny like this, and my question is just more like, what exactly would Riddle Voldemort have given to Lucius Malfoy information-wise? Because he's not going to tell him everything. So what does Lucius know about it that caused him to want to use it?
What if, Voldemort just tells Malfoy that it's a dark artifact? He doesn't tell him it's anything personal to Voldemort. He just says, keep this safe. It's very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
All of the raids were going on over the summer.
Yeah.
Malfoy had to get rid of this book because they were going to find it in the mansion. So he figures out a way to subtly get rid of it and put it in the hands of the daughter of the person doing the raids.
But then how would Dobby know that there would be...
Yeah. I think maybe we did touch on this previously.
Maybe Lucius wrote in it after it was given to him.
That's interesting.
And 16-year-old Riddle was like, da-da-da, and Lucius like, look, I'm this guy. And he's like, okay, this is what I can do.
I like that.
Because 16-year-old Riddle still wouldn't want to say anything about creating the Horcruxes, but he would say, hey, if you want to cause havoc again, maybe as he was cleaning out all of his things with all the raids or whatever, he came across that and was like, hey, what is this? Let me find out.
I like that. I don't know if there's any reason that Malfoy couldn't write in it.
Yeah. I'm going to go with that. That makes me feel a little better.
All right, I'm buying.
All right. I wonder what it says about leadership styles. That Headmaster Dippet brushed the true story of Myrtle's death under the rug 50 years ago. But in book 4, Dumbledore immediately tells the whole school exactly how Cedric Diggory died. Like, I wonder if Dumbledore learned from Dippet's mistakes, or if that's just different, that's just who they are differently, and Dumbledore thinks everybody needs to know, and Dippet was more like, we're going to keep it
So
secret, keep people safe, or make them feel safe.
What do you mean about Dippet brushing the true story under the rug?
The only story that came out was that it was an accident.
Oh, okay.
Nobody really knew she died by the Chamber of Secrets. It was just that
so that's how the school stayed open. So, I mean, it's again, just because it sounds like it's a bad decision, his intentions could very well be good to keep the school open.
Right. I'm not saying anything against why he did it. It says a lot about leadership styles on what is considered important. For Dippet, it was keeping the school open. For Dumbledore, it was making sure everybody had good information.
But, I mean, along with that, Dumbledore is worldwide known as being the most powerful. So, like, even if something were to happen, I think people would still feel safe with Dumbledore being in charge, as opposed to just being a teacher there.
True.
I don't know.
Okay. And then they went on and on and on about how there were no attacks for such a long time. It was so safe now because Harry had the diary. Of course it was safe. Ginny didn't have it.
So I never really thought about that. That's seeing this right now is the first time I've thought about that.
Oh, really? I thought about that.
Yeah.
That's actually something I thought of every time other than the first time I've read it. Of course there's no attacks. Harry's in possession.
So to me that goes to what's the procedure like for the monster, the basilisk, being released? Does Ginny have to open the door every single time to let it out
through the thing?
How would she get down there?
How does she get back out?
Right. So that's where I'm trying to work through right now.
Well, and then another thought that I had was, how is there somebody? We had talked about how the people who kept getting attacked were getting attacked in corridors. I don't know about you.
There are no open pipes in corridors.
I was going to say, I
always thought that was
my
bizarre.
house doesn't have random pipe openings. That would be maybe the bathrooms and the showers.
And like pipes, I mean, come on. They're normally full of water, so it's an amphibious snake, apparently. That one's always bothered me. I was like, and they describe how large it is. Like, how large are these pipes? Like, it's unreasonably large. I mean, I'm not a plumbing, designer or anything, but I know how large pipes would typically be for buildings and things like that. So, for the size of snake described, you would need much larger pipes than you would normally have.
I have a note that I had actually written for later on, but it fits with this.
Sure. And I am kind of jumping ahead a little bit.
Well, I think that's okay because, we're in the unrestricted section right now. We can talk about anything we want. My idea about the pipes is Slytherin was 1,000 years ago.
I did see your note. It's at the end of the book somewhere. I saw your note written on this, yeah.
There was not indoor plumbing.
Right.
Or pipes.
Right.
So, okay, fine. Maybe he started using the pipes later on, and maybe they're even magically enhanced. The serpent has some sort of...
It engorges to the size that the pipe needs to be for the snake to go through.
However, the faucet tap, had a little engraved snake on the side. There were no bathrooms. I think that's a huge problem.
Yeah, so I'm going to reference one of my favorite podcasts that has talked about this. I thought it was pretty funny the way that they put it. The chapter titles were so good.
Yes.
When they talk about this, they clearly delineate that basically there had to have been the original chamber, the door that Harry gets to later on. With the big, very realistic looking snakes.
Yes.
That's the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets.
With you.
So there had to have been a plumber of Slytherin that found it, but wasn't necessarily the heir, so couldn't get in himself, or it just wasn't the right timing. So basically the plumber of Slytherin designed the plumbing system for Hogwarts and just basically moved a secondary entrance.
So before that was the only entrance, and
right?
Slytherin
And it was hidden maybe somehow
under the lake, which is what they kind of
right,
said.
Right.
And so he created a shortcut.
Right.
Okay.
So basically, whenever the plumbing was installed, it just happened to be a Slytherin that found this and decided to put these other little things in there along with it. So that's the plumber of Slytherin theory.
I like it.
Yeah. Also, listen to those guys; they're pretty funny.
Yeah.
The chapter titles were so good.
All right, 3 more thoughts. Does no one notice that Ginny wasn't at the Quidditch game? Who's keeping tabs on her? Does she not have any close friends? I know Percy tries sometimes, but obviously he's too distracted by the girlfriend. How does no one notice her missing all these times?
So she probably doesn't have any close friends right now because she's had the diary all year.
Oh.
So she probably hasn't opened up to anybody because she hasn't needed to. She hasn't gone out of her way to make any friends because she...
Well, and she's going through such a trauma thing anyway. Like, she's such a victim at the moment that she probably is shut down and closed off and isn't
going to be fun to be around, so no one's going to try to be her friend right now.
I'm thinking more in terms of, if you think about people who are victims of domestic violence or whatever, they do tend, I mean, not always, sometimes they're fine, but like...
seclude themselves a bit.
Right. Depending on if they're being controlled by, that person tries to keep them shut off from the rest of the world. They try to control their movements. They try to tell them what they can and can't do. It's very possible Riddle was doing that to her.
Sure, definitely.
So,
Definitely.
Man, he was like an abusive boyfriend.
I mean, she falls for him. I mean,
that's kind of what it is. Like, he's a really, really, really abusive boyfriend.
Which is interesting that Ginny falls for Harry while he still has a part of the Horcrux in him. I don't know.
Well, I think that's more the whole, I know what it's like.
I think we maybe chit-chat about this a little bit, but I think it's just kind of
I think that
worth
more
noting.
Of that then. All right, so Harry and Ron sneaking off to the forest is yet another example of them rushing headfirst into something with no plan whatsoever. How they managed to survive all of this is beyond me. Once again, they don't die. They should die. Many times they just go without thinking, absolutely no thought, and they make it out. Good job. It's shocking.
It's also surprising that they were told not to worry about something once. End of book, McGonagall said, don't worry about this. We've got this under control. When they were clearly on the tail. They were on the hot lead.
Right.
And they got dismissed entirely.
Yep.
So it's funny that one time that they were shut down negates like every time moving forward for them to just go bring this up, create the awareness to the proper authorities.
Yes.
I don't know.
So my last thought is, was that the last time we saw the Weasleys' car?
Yep.
That makes me sad.
I know. I wish it could have come back. I mean, at least in the battle for Hogwarts. I mean, like everything else came back. The spiders came back.
Or can it like attack Umbridge during book 6 or 5? I mean, like, come on. There were so many good places for a rogue car.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just like, a random sighting, like out looking out the window, like of Gryffindor windows. Like, I think I just saw Dad's car. Huh.
Right.
Like just
give me something.
It'd have been a nice little texture piece somewhere. Like not a plot point at all. Not like be used for anything.
No, well, it's kind of like chess. How
or
we
just
were
like,
really annoyed with chess in the first book because like it was so apparently
pops
a plot
up
point. It does
just just for texture. Or like next time they're in the forest, be like, I saw some tire treads.
Right.
Like just a slight hint. Be like, there's Dad's car.
Or like when he goes, what is it, Aragog's funeral or something, and like
sure. Absolutely.
Or like the busted off mirror that
when Harry goes to see the dragons in the forest with Hagrid and
or
Madam.
Grop.
Yeah, or Grop too.
What would be cool is if they could just take the car to Grop.
Why?
Because it'd be a lot faster.
Oh, if they could take the car to get to him. Yeah.
Like mode of transportation.
R.I.P. car mentions.
Oh, all right. Luke, you have less thoughts than I did.
I do.
Yours might be deeper. I just had a lot.
So while the boys are walking around in the corridors at some point, we hear McGonagall's class, and one of the students turns their friend into a badger.
Yeah.
What are the limits on animagi and like being able to turn somebody else, like the transfiguration rules of that, and like why wouldn't you always just get the transfiguration things down where you'd be like, hey, can you just turn me into an octopus? Like I'm going in the water. Like as opposed to having one animal that you can turn into. You can just be like, well,
my friend can turn me into a fish.
Or anything. Or is that friends that got turned into the badger, is that their spirit animal? Because we see that
I just
becomes...
assumed they were Hufflepuffs.
And that's the other thing too. Like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. It just seems like a really odd throwaway, like side note thing that she probably would not have done later, like after book 3.
Or especially book 4 with the whole we don't turn
students into weasels. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's the exact same magic right there.
Right.
How is that not more of a thing?
I don't know.
I
agree with you. I don't know. I just thought it was funny. Like a lot of the time I see these things and I'm like, she didn't think this through in the grand scheme of the book. This is one of those.
Yeah.
But I didn't really notice it. To me, that was just funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's what it's intended to be. It's supposed to be a silly thing that, they've turned his friend to a badger. Oh, slapstick.
Right.
So let's get back to werewolves.
Oh my god.
There are so many mentions of werewolves throughout these early books before next book where they really start getting into what it means to be a werewolf.
Yep.
And like
Yep.
actually talking
Do
about
you think
that.
she knew that was coming?
Maybe. But my question along with this as well is, do you think that was a setup, like we kind of just mentioned last chapter,
Right.
of the prejudice that we're going to see against werewolves? You know, like clearly they're used to show just because they have this condition, they're not a bad person.
But
You know-
everything in this book kind of
Right. And I
gives
think
that
that's,
evil.
for me, this is, I'm looking at it as she's setting that foundation of, she's using this so many times. If she did have the werewolf story planned out moving
I
forward.
think that was my question.
Right. If let's assume that she did. She
Okay.
knew that she was going to have a werewolf in the story
Then
in
yes.
some manner. That she is setting the foundation for bringing them up as these terrifying creatures that are like just, as we've mentioned many times, unreasonably terrified of all the time.
Right.
When it's such like a specific thing, as opposed to like a vampire who is technically dangerous all the time.
True. I agree with you. I think this was definitely, if this was done intentionally, it was done very, very well to set up that the
People are
subconscious fear of it.
Yeah,
And their, again, lack of knowledge
exactly.
about it. Like, let's throw in all of these things about werewolves, and you'll find there's actually one more coming.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 17. Wait for it. And I think it does a really good job, because I think one thing she does is she tries to subvert common ideas.
Tropes. Yeah.
Yes. Like, there's a reason why they're the Weasleys. They're named after weasels,
Mm-hmm.
who people automatically assume are, you know, bad and kind of disgusting animals. She purposely named, like, the best family in the book, the Weasleys.
Mm-hmm.
Those kinds of things. I feel like this might be trying to set up that same sort of feeling. Like, I have you set up to feel this way just so I can, like, break it down and twist your thinking.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like, as we've mentioned these, I've been leaning towards this thought here, and I think this is a good time to put it in of, you know, she has been building this foundation of just people's unreasonable prejudices that they have without learning. I mean, it's a prejudice because they don't know.
Everybody has prejudices.
Right.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
The trick is recognizing you have them.
It's like I
and
said,
doing
9/10
something
of
to
that
learn about them to change.
creating
not to
creating
necessarily,
awareness
like,
is everything.
Yes. And I think that she's so good at that. And I think, and I don't even know where it was, but at some point I read an article that said the generation that grew up reading Harry Potter is a lot more tolerant than the generation before.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that's attributed to her books.
I'd believe it.
Because she was teaching them from a young age what tolerance looks like in a safe way.
It's give everyone a chance.
Right.
Have
and,
to.
And you have to look at each case by case. You can't,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's not about giving a general stereotype, even though sometimes we do on here, giving a general stereotype because of what you think you know
Mm-hmm.
and your own personal experience. And
Or,
not-
you know, maybe go with carefully use generalities. Carefully.
yes.
But if you see evidence that contradicts it, don't be afraid to accept that.
Yes. Be willing to learn.
Like, use the advantages of generalities, but when it's not going that way, don't hard fast stick to that rule because
Right.
you're probably wrong.
Right. All right.
Next note, I'm gonna ask again, do you think Snape would be a good headmaster?
Still no.
Still no. I was wondering if, you know, opening it up, knowing
yes.
how he actually turns out to be.
No.
I don't think so either. I think he's just a jerk.
Yes,
I'm not a Snape fan, even with what we learn about him in the future.
Yeah.
I don't. It doesn't really change my opinion of him.
I definitely think that in book 7, him being headmaster, even though it was absolutely terrible, if they had put any other Death Eater, because it had to be a Death Eater who was running
Right.
Hogwarts. It had to be. If it had been any other Death Eater, students would be dying.
Yeah.
So I think on his watch, given what he had to work with, he didn't do terribly. Like, he kept kids alive, which honestly, that year, that was hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I will give him that he did literally something no other person in the whole world could do. And that was have Voldemort's trust enough to be in charge of the school and be able to protect the lives of the children. That doesn't mean they weren't abused or injured or tortured and will have PTSD from it for the rest of their lives. They probably will.
Sure.
But he kept them alive. There was not much else he could do, because if he did anything else,
Right.
Voldemort wouldn't trust him anymore. And he had, like,
Right.
he made hard choices that were probably the right choices,
Mm-hmm.
even though people got hurt, because it was like that whole for the greater good. Like, I have to do this for the good of the kids in the school, even though it's not good for them, but it's
Right.
better than the alternative.
Yes.
However, he's kind of a jerk. Like, in that year, he had to be a jerk. He had to play the jerk. But
Sure.
he was a jerk this year. He didn't have to be a jerk this year.
Right.
I feel like if he had survived the Battle of Hogwarts,
And he could actually just be himself.
and we still found out, because
Right.
that would be the other trick, is if
Right.
he survived,
You
we would
gotta let
still
that
need
cat out
to
of the bag.
know. If that happened, I think there'd be a whole different thing.
Right. And I think that's kind of what I'm asking at this time. Like, knowing his true...
Personage.
Yeah. I mean, what his heart actually is. Like, I think he's definitely got the ability, absolutely, to be a headmaster.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
He's brilliant.
quite capable. And I think he knows what, more than anybody, more than McGonagall, what Dumbledore does.
Oh, yeah. I think he's the only person Dumbledore fully trusts.
I agree.
Period.
Yep. And he's the one that he actually confides in.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, is he capable? Absolutely. Would he be a good one? Not necessarily. Again, depends on the situation.
If people knew
If he allowed
hiding them.
people to know who he
Yes.
was,
I wonder, and
even
this
after
is-
all this time.
Yeah, always. I wonder if Harry had found out about Snape and Snape didn't die, and Harry still named his son Albus Severus. I wonder how Snape would take that.
Mm-hmm.
Like really, how would Snape react to finding out that Harry Potter, son of Lily, but also son of James?
I don't think Harry would have done it if Snape was still alive, though.
You think so?
I think it had to come down to his ultimate sacrifice.
Okay.
That's what earned
Okay.
it. And not because he was in love with his mother. That'd be creepy.
No, but
That's weird.
even if he hadn't died, let's say he survived that snake attack, but he still did everything else.
I
Everything
still
else
don't
happened. You
think
still
Harry...
so? Okay.
I don't
All right.
know.
All right.
So, again, we mentioned this last chapter, but being so afraid of something you wouldn't even say its name, it's just so silly to me.
Yeah,
And we don't really need to
there's
spend a whole lot of time on it,
Unless
but-
there's the it's not the trace, it's the other thing on Voldemort's name that they put on in book 7.
Yeah,
Like,
kind of the reverse.
yeah. Okay, so that actually was a problem.
Sure. I mean, and that's, I think, coming to
That's
this question
Pretty
of being
brilliant,
like,
actually.
well, people don't like saying his name, except for the people who kind of don't care and are probably threats to us.
So
let's track those people.
I think that was a brilliant choice.
I do too, and I think it's a
mean-
good way of. I'm sure basically this same idea was in all of the threads and posts and forums and things. You know, in the years between
Mm-hmm.
this and all the way up through book 7. So she was like, "Well, let me give you a reason why being afraid of his name is going to be okay."
Right.
Like,
Right.
because Ron turned out to be right on that one. Like, let's just not say his name. Can we just not say his name,
Thank
please?
God.
Right. Yeah. Until they actually say it. So this is another thing that we kind of talked about. But do you think Dumbledore can see through the invisibility cloak?
No.
Or is it just the other perceptive things that he's got going on?
Yes.
That he was able to,
Yes.
one at the Mirror of Erised knew that Harry was there, which
I think Harry had taken off the
he had
cloak at
taken
that
off the cloak
Yeah.
to do that. So that's more reasonable.
I also wonder if he has like his own version of the Marauders map, like a headmaster map that kind of
Should.
right, like that keeps track of all the kids. And well, okay, you're wandering off to the Forbidden Forest. You're sneaking off, and then you disappear for a while to that room of requirement, which Dumbledore doesn't know exists. Because he's not watching all the time. But
Right.
I think that might be part of it. That'd be fun. And then if you see a random kid walking around terribly in the middle of the night, okay,
Send Snape after him.
yes,
Yeah.
or Filch.
Sure.
Notice how Filch doesn't catch a lot of people in this book because Mrs. Norris isn't there.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I think it's the knowing that Harry has a cloak, listening for the sound. You know what I mean? Like knowing that Hagrid had been talking to somebody before you walked in. I think there might be somebody else here.
Mm-hmm.
Who could be here? I don't see anybody. Nobody went out the back door. Hey, maybe. And then you hear something in the corner and your eyes start and you're like, got it.
That's pretty
Knowing
reasonable.
that Harry and Hagrid were close, knowing that, yeah, I think it was more of a Sherlock thing than a seeing through invisibility cloaks thing.
Sure. How bizarre must the normal accidents be around the school that Pomfrey can justify not telling someone about Hermione's cat hair incident?
I don't think I understand the question.
So, like, the normal maladies that Pomfrey sees, like, all the time, like, kids getting hurt in classes and turn into badgers or whatever.
Right?
Like, how crazy must those be that Hermione can just be, like, her turning into a cat woman is, like, normal enough that you don't have to, like, elevate
Report
that.
it
Right, you don't have to, yeah. I
There's
don't
no
know.
like higher level authority keeping track of just how crazy.
There's no like this is above my pay grade. Like
Right,
I got a
So like how
elevate this one.
McGonagall had to take Harry to Dumbledore because of all the attacks and all of his relation to the cats, but
Right.
nobody had to report Hermione for turning into a cat lady
Or like, why did this happen? Like, no one's questioning this?
over Christmas break when you're not supposed to be
You're not
really
in class or
doing-
anything?
Yeah. No, I don't know. That's a good question. Probably pretty crazy.
Yeah, I would say so.
You know, I mean, if people are turning friends into badgers and other random animals,
Yeah.
all right.
So the only other common room that we see until book 7 is the Slytherin common room.
Yep.
And then we see Ravenclaws in book 7.
Right.
We never see Hufflepuff.
No, it makes me sad.
Yeah.
I think I read once. Oh, yeah. I think I read once that she had written it in, and they were supposed to go there at some point, and like it just didn't work.
Kind of like the same thing in book 1, how we never met the Grey Lady when we met all 3 other house ghosts.
Yeah.
It's like
Like, it
would have
just-
been pretty easy just to...
Yeah, well, I think there was like she was trying to find plot points to get them there because she had it,
Mm-hmm.
but there was never a plot point to go to Hufflepuff.
Sure. It was better just to edit it out,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Than shoehorn it in.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. I think that wraps us up for this 5-chat recap and unrestricted section.
Go ahead and find us at Not Named Podcast on Twitter. We have a website, thepodcastthat.com, where you can find a variety of things, but not our pictures.
Not yet.
Not at the moment. There are episodes of both this show and our other show, which is the podcast that drinks and knows. Coming shortly at the beginning of January of 2018, we will also have episodes of the podcast that floats down here, our chapter by chapter read through of Stephen King's It, where I, as a Stephen King expert, and our brother Ben, a Stephen King fanboy, introduce Luke, who's a Stephen King newbie.
Which is weird.
I
Very,
know.
very weird.
That
Reading
Luke-
chapter by chapter.
Luke is very Jon Snow about Stephen King. He knows nothing. And it's very fun. We are trekking our way through the world of It and Pennywise and the Losers Club. So if you are over the age of 17, 18, 19,
Younger.
maybe. I would not say middle school, at least high school.
I mean,
age.
I don't know.
Well, I think I read it when I was like a junior or senior in high school. So maybe around there. If you're 10, don't read it. Let me just say that. Join us as we go chapter by chapter.
Subscribe, rate, like us, leave a comment on iTunes or YouTube. We have plenty of videos and past episodes there as well.
Next week, we will be discussing chapter 16.
The Chamber of Secrets. Stay imaginary.
Thanks.